Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. It's been a short break, but we are back. The football podcast has returned. We are talking upcoming football and trying to avoid talking about any football that's going on at the moment. Kind of. Less said about that the better, or more said about that the better when you're talking about a podcast. Anyway, before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Drop in reviews you want to drop. Share the podcast around. If you've got a football fan in your life, send this podcast their way. They might even thank you for it. Anyway, enough from me. Let's get started. So here we go. This is CookieCast, the football podcast.
Recording in progress.
Well. After a brief hiatus, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We're back to give you some delicious football content from a Middlesbrough, Hull and Nottingham Forest perspective. As always, I'm not alone. Joining me this week is the founder, the father, the birth giver of the CookieCast podcast network. It is Mr. Andrew Cook himself. How are you, sir?
Oh, cold. Very cold. But other than that, I am well, thank you.
Excellent. We are also joined by everyone's resident favourite Hull City supporter, Mr. Stuart Woodmansey. How are you, sir?
I mean, you've caught me at the right time. This is the patch that we can actually have the lights on in the house in the current energy sort of cost of living crisis. So it was lucky that you called at this point.
Very nice. And rounding out the pack, as it were, is everyone's favourite Nottingham Forest supporter, Matthew Moore. How are you, sir?
Very good. Obviously we'll talk about it in a bit, but Forest are signing players, so what's not to be happy about?
And what a place to start, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, no football predictions to go through from last week, as we haven't been here. So we'll just do a little roundup of what's going on with our respective clubs. So we might as well start with Mr. Moore's free signing Nottingham Forest, who have got the old chequebook out yet again. Or is it a freebie, this one?
So I think this one's been in the works for a while, and there's a bit of confusion as to when he was actually meant to come to the club. So his name's Gustavo Scarpa.
What a great name!
Please tell me he's a winger.
He's a Brazilian. I think he's like a Brazilian kind of forward, kind of midfielder, kind of that kind of position. If I can find him. So I think he was just been at Palmeiras, I think, or something like that. Have a look. So yeah, he's come to Forest from Palmeiras.
Palmeiras, yeah.
In Brazil, who've just won the Copa del Libertadores, to which he was kind of a key player in it. I think, yeah, like I said, I think it's been a done deal from about the summertime. I think it's someone that they've definitely been looking at for a while. And yeah, he's on a Bosman free agent kind of signing. Yeah, and already is out in Greece. There's a lot of clubs with links to international vibe owners. Or they're off to their owner's native land to go and train and play. So yeah, he apparently played today, 2 assists already. So starts work 1st of January officially for Forest. But yeah, he's already training with the team, skateboarding around Nottingham, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, one signing already. We'll see what goes on.
Very nice. Is there anything else from a Nottingham Forest flavour for us?
Just a slightly weird one. One of the players that they signed on deadline day, Loic Bardet. I think they signed him from Rennes, kind of thing. And there's been a lot of questions as to why he's not played for Forest. It would appear that basically in October they agreed with Rennes that he wouldn't play again for Forest because he's probably going to go back in January to be moved on to somebody else. And if he played for Forest, because he'd already played for Rennes, and then he would have played for Forest, then he wouldn't have been able to play for a third team. So obviously he hasn't settled in Nottingham and is heading back to France to possibly move on elsewhere, I presume. So yeah, a bit of a flop, that signing, just on loan. So I assume they will have got some of their loan money back, due to them requesting that he didn't play. But yeah, so an outgoing as well.
Yeah, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, straight from the horse's mouth. But a delightful horse, nonetheless. Mr. Woodmansey, you have some Hull news, I believe.
I do, and we'll continue on the theme of outgoing with the fact that this past week, former owner / chairman Assam Alam has passed away, aged 83. Alam was in charge for 2 Premier League promotions, an FA Cup final, Hull's first ever games in Europe, a League One title, and a total of 12 years in charge. So that's definitely the highlights package for sure. Obviously, wishes family well and everything. There was the point of, yes, Hull wouldn't probably still be around, or certainly not in the shape that they are now if it wasn't for him. But if he'd have just sold us a good 4 years earlier, maybe we might have even been in a better position and effectively bled the club dry. So yeah, that's as many nice things as I can say without getting myself in trouble. So I'm leaving that one right there. Also, in happier news from the club, a few of you, if you've listened along for the season, may remember at the start of the season, the new owner, Ajun Ilajali, had offered to take up to 300 fans on an all-expenses-paid trip to Turkey. It was kind of never really mentioned again. However, when you've got a break smack in the middle of the season, thanks to a definitely not bent organisation of a World Cup, why not take some fans out to Turkey with your first team and all the coaching and staff? So they have been for the last week, went on the Corendon Airlines actual branded Hull City aeroplane, which I think is quite cool. I mean, it's not going to be to everyone's taste, but that looked good to me. They played 2 friendlies that we know of whilst they were there. One against a local side, one against Trabzonspor, which I have heard of before. Both games finished 1-1. 2 fans scored in the second game against Trabzonspor with a penalty. And I cannot now remember who scored in the first game, and that's gone completely out of my head. It wasn't really just, for the fans side of things, it wasn't really just about the football, though. They did get a fun-packed week. And a gent who I used to work with, who has travelled many, many miles to see City, home and away, was one of the lucky few that was selected. So I've seen a few pictures on the old Facebook from his little trip, and it looked brilliant fun, to be fair. They had a day at a theme park, they were open training sessions, they watched the England game as a massive group, and obviously the players were sort of interspersed amongst the fans that were there as well. So it looked like a decent trip all round. But let's hope that brings them back sharp, ready to go, because they've got a tough game coming up this weekend. So we shall get to momentarily.
Very nice. Anything else?
That's pretty much it, really. Apart from, massive piss up and a death in the family. That's pretty much covered all angles there.
Excellent. Obviously not for one of those items, but we bring you the stuff we have to bring you, ladies and gentlemen. So from a Middlesbrough perspective, no incomings, no outgoings. Just they did arrange a friendly with Hibernian for the time that's been during the World Cup break. They won 2-0 with goals from Chuba and a goal from the developmental squad player called Sonny Finch, who's a youngster who's coming through. I was actually going to tip him up as my one to potentially watch for the rest of the season, but with how well some of the forwards have been playing recently, I don't think he's going to get much of a chance, personally. But he's in the games that he's been given. I know it was only a friendly and stuff like that, but in the games he's been given, he has found the back of the net. So hopefully some good stuff for the future. That's about it from the Middlesbrough perspective. So I did make a note of the FA Cup third round draw that involves all of our teams. So these games will take place on the 7th or the 8th of January in the last one that we'll go through. But the ties that came out in order were Middlesbrough drawn at home to Premier League Brighton and Hove Albion. Nottingham Forest were drawn away at Championship Blackpool. Hull were drawn at home to Premier League Fulham. And just because it sort of ticks two boxes, Hartlepool United drew Stoke City of the Championship at home. Now, the reason I say it ticks two boxes is because obviously I have mentioned Hartlepool United on this podcast before, and the eagle-eared amongst the listeners will know that Stoke is where one of our participants is actually from. So, there you are. He's pointing himself, ladies and gentlemen. It is absolutely not Mr. Andrew Cook, because everyone knows he was from Bristol. So, 7th and 8th of January for those games. The Middlesbrough, Forest and Hull games are all on the 7th, kicking off at 3 p.m. The Hartlepool United game kicks off on the Sunday at 2 p.m. Fingers crossed that they can all get the necessary results to progress, and you never know, we might get a tie between one of or two of the four teams, because one wouldn't really make any sense.
Well, I'm just going to say it now. It won't be us, so you boys fight amongst yourselves.
Listen, we're arguably the underdogs in both of our ties. Both drawn, fair enough, at home, but against Premier League sides, you wouldn't really fancy them on paper. So we'll see what happens. The FA Cup always throws up a couple of surprises. So.
Borough did all right out of that situation last season, though, didn't they? From memory,
certainly did. So you never know. Let's all say we're all pulling for Pools to beat Stoke. Even though he's from there, he don't really like Stoke, does he? So we'll jump in to what brought us to the dance, and that's diving straight back in with football. Now, just Championship football back at this point, as the Premier League is not actually due to restart until, I believe, Boxing Day, or around that time. There is League Cup football, I believe, for Nottingham Forest.
A week Tuesday, I think.
So, we talked about this before, didn't we? It's like 2 days after the World Cup final.
Yeah. So, I dare say we'll probably cover it in next week's show, potentially, rather than predicting it at this point. But depending on the day of the game, let me just double check. No, it's not within the next week, so no. We're all good. We're all good. So, our Week 17 predictions start with Middlesbrough taking on Luton Town. It's obviously my team. I will go last. Mr. Cook, let's dive straight in with your predictions for this one, sir.
I wanted to ease my way back into predicting nice and casual So I'm going 1-0 Middlesbrough with Chuba to score the goal.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. That sound you can hear right there is everyone ticking off on their CookieCast football podcast bingo card. Andrew Cook selecting a 1-0 with Chuba to score the goal.
Correct.
Mr. Woodmansey,
everybody needs to drink.
Your prediction, sir?
I have gone for a 1-1 draw with Morris to score for Luton and Mr. Isaiah Jones for the Borough.
Now, I was writing down 1-1 and completely misheard what you said for Luton Town. I do apologise.
Morris. It's alright, it was only a minor discretion. Morris, minor.
Jones and Morris.
That's a joke for the really old listeners there.
Yeah.
Much older, even older.
Good heavens, that was terrible. Mr. Moore, what have you got for this prediction, sir?
I've gone for a Middlesbrough 2-1 win.
Interesting.
Huber and Fours to score.
Yes.
And Morris for Luton.
So, second home game in charge for Mr. Carrick. Obviously, first one after a couple of weeks break. I think they'll hit the ground where they were. They'll take off or pick up where they left off from the last game before the break. I've gone for a 2-0 win with Akpom, and I don't know why, but for some reason I get the feeling he might give this guy a go straight from the off to see what he's got. But I'm going to go with Hoppy to score the second goal. No idea why. Just something that came to me when I was doing the book earlier today. He probably won't even be in the squad and make me look like a bit of a tit. So there we go. The Middlesbrough game, done and dusted. To finish us off for this particular week, we have Watford taking on Hull City. Mr. Woodmansey's team, he will therefore give us the last prediction of the week. I'll dive straight in here. It's a tough one for Hull. Couldn't really have asked for a more tough game, really, to restart the season with. I have gone for a 2-0 Watford win on this one, sadly, with Davis and Sarr to score the goals. Mr. Moore?
I have gone for a 3-2 Watford win.
Goals galore.
They concede a lot. I've gone for Sarr and a double from João Pedro.
And for Hull?
We've got to keep him on the go. So Estepinian.
Got to be back in the goals soon, you'd have thought.
And
Pelkas. Mr. Cook.
So, having heard everything you've said there, it's a 1-0 Hull win for me. And
Good lad.
Estepinian to score that there goal.
There you are, ladies and gentlemen. You've heard the rest. Now you're going to hear the best from the horse's mouth. It was the second appearance of a horse on this week's podcast. Who would have known? And it is an equally lovely horse. Mr. Woodmansey, what's it going to be?
I have actually agreed with your scoreline. I have gone for Watford 2, Hull City 0. And I have also kind of amalgamated your goal scorers across the board, apart from Andy's. So I've gone for Davis and Pedro.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Short, but equally sweet. That is this week's podcast. Unless anyone has any additional material to go through.
I think we could probably talk about the fact that England are going to get slammed out of the World Cup on Saturday. But
well, you say this, Stu, but I would imagine if in fact I was listening to a Moroccan football podcast. That absolutely was not.
I didn't know you spoke Moroccan, Paul.
But seriously, look on paper, and a lot of people have said Morocco versus Spain, that's got massacre written all over it. I mean, I do think France will beat us comfortably, but, stranger things have happened.
It's when someone goes, Kyle Walker is the man for the job to stop Mbappe, and you're like, yeah, good one. I mean,
Kyle
we'll
Walker.
pull a hammy within the first 20 minutes, so...
Listen, I understand why, because he's the only one who's capable of keeping pace with him. So it does make sense.
He has got that pace about his game, but he's also got that thing of the second Mbappe gets past him, Kyle Walker will be in the book quicker than he ran. So
Also, it won't matter because he's going to be playing three at the back anyway. So it's basically Trippier and Walker doubling up on him every single time. So it's a moot point basically.
I am looking forward to watching the game, mainly because I'm going out and I will have a beer in my hand. I'm not football wise. It's going to be, at least I'll have some consolation ready made. Basically,
I did see that obviously with the League One and League Two fixtures haven't stopped; they've just continued on. And obviously in League Two, you've got Newport County, which is technically a Welsh club, and they have refused to move their game at 3. And I can't remember who it is that's travelling there. Doncaster, maybe. So all the Doncaster fans that have got to go away have then got either a mad rush to get back to Doncaster in 2 hours, or they've got to try and drive somewhere in 2 hours where they know they can get to a TV. So,
why would they not just stay in Newport for it? Surely.
Oh, I imagine all of the pubs there will be like, no, we're not. We don't get ITV or BBC. We don't get it.
Ah, man, I've seen Welcome to Wrexham. They love some outsiders down there.
Before we said anything, I believe Mr. Cook was about to spring forth with some bits and pieces there.
No, I was doing it. I was making a funny. You said material. I was like, what, like stand up and jokes and stuff.
If you've got some, drop it on us.
I don't. I wasted my opportunity when Matt kept going on about Ren, and I was like, what's Stimpy going to have to say about it? So.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is the sort of content you can expect every week when you come back for more football-related content. But yes, we are done and dusted. Obviously, like I say, nice and quick one, this one, as we had no predictions to go through from the week before. But it should be back to regularly scheduled programming from now until the end of the season. So yes, thank you to these three gentlemen for joining me to go through this particular week back into regular football. Obviously, the World Cup has been a nice distraction, but it's good to be back to the real hard stuff, shall we say. Join us again next week, where I'm sure we'll all go through this, and we'll be brought right back down to earth with a couple of thumping 7-0 defeats. Until then, ta-ta for now.
So there we go. What do you think to that? Football's back in a roundabout way. Certainly we'll be talking about football next week, so join us for that. Big thank you to the boys for all getting back together and talking more football, bringing you the football that you love. Before you go, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave us a review. If you like the podcast, review it. And if you like the podcast, share it around. If you want to check out our website, it's thecookiecast.com. Over there we've got social media links and an email button for you to get in touch with us. That's it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to Cookie Cast.